Welcome to episode 23 of Convergence with Karen Holton, here on People for People Radio. Find out how the personal is political as we explore the politics here on Earth, the exopolitics of our galaxy, and how these intersect with spiritual transformation through my unique perspective. Just to catch you up, our returning guest today first appeared in episode 17, and she filled in for me by hosting episode 20 of Convergence. It is indeed a great pleasure to introduce my friend Lorilei Potvin from the Angel Rock Show. Lorilei is a psychic medium, a crystal Reiki Master, medical intuitive, energy healer, Akashic Records Practitioner, spiritual teacher, YouTuber, and a registered nurse. Today we will continue our discussion of Canadian health and politics, and we delve into some of the social issues that are arising from these current conditions. If this is your first time joining us, I encourage you to check out the archives here on People for People Radio, www.peopleforpeople.ning.com, or my YouTube and Odyssey channels to find all of the episodes of Convergence. And I'm pretty sure you'll be glad you did. Today in episode 23, I am delighted to bring back my friend, Lorilei Potvin of the Angel Rock Show. Lorilei and I are both judges for the Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice, and we are up to date about the facts and the implications of these facts on both national and international levels. Today, we will discuss the current Canadian political climate and its social repercussions. But first, Lorilei, welcome to the show, and please tell us more about what you're up to and where people can find you.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you so much for having me here. I love you, love your show. Vanessa and Gaz, who work behind the scenes to make everything work like clockwork here. Thank you. Such a beautiful place to be able to have a safe space to be able to speak freely. So thank you. What I've been up to, geez, I've been on lots of different podcasts. You and I have done some podcasts together. I'm doing my own show. On top of that, I'm working on a new show, a new concept. This is one of the first places I'm talking about it. Still working out the details, but it's supposedly on my network, on United Public Radio Network, on a Saturday. So I'm going to be doing something completely different than what I normally do. And yeah, when I have more details, I'll be sure to share them. And then when I have a spare moment, I'm launching my second business with resin. So things like orgonite, things like crystal grids, I make chess boards, chess pieces. I mean, anything you can think of, I probably have a mold for. So super busy. And how are you, Karen?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. As you mentioned, yeah, we've done several shows together recently, besides all the hours we put in with the tribunal work. And so I thought, it's time to give another update because things are changing so fast. I thought it would be time to give another update to the listeners about what's going on in Canada. And I got to tell you, just before I came on the show today, I got a clip. Now, I don't know exactly where it's from, but it was just a short clip where it was some representative from the United States claiming that only 6% of the reported deaths from COVID-19 were only actually caused the death. So that means 94% of all the death statistics are wrong and were used to pump up the illusion of this great global crisis. What are your thoughts, Lorilei?
Yes, I know about that clip, and I'm even going to add something now. That number seems to be going back and forth between 6% that came out very quietly I believe it was a couple months ago. Then I did see that the numbers were updated to actual 5%. So depending on what source you use, it's a 1% difference. The point is that we are finding out about the lie. No, don't get me wrong. Yes, people did die. There are people that died. But my thoughts are that where did the flu go this year? We didn't hear
Mm-hmm.
about any flu deaths. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying it's the flu. We do know this exists. But the fact that the way it was done, everything we've uncovered, everything we are seeing, the extra monetary incentive exactly for, I'm talking about the US, and I'm sure it went on in many other places, but there was proof that came out. There was incentive to put down COVID as the cause of death for money with
Mm-hmm.
hospitals. And if a ventilator was utilized, I believe it was an extra $39,000 for the hospitals. So this whole thing, the more that I look at it, you just think, my gosh, you know what? This has been in the works for years because it seems like a hydra. You know that mythical monster where you cut
Mm-hmm.
one head off and three more sprout. This
Yep.
is what seems to be happening. It's just never ending. And just when you think things are just about to take a turn for the positive, the rug gets pulled out from underneath our feet, especially where we are in Canada. I'm very concerned. I seen that apparently uh, our Trudeau Prime Minister's numbers are soaring right now in popularity. Now, something's not right about that. Never mind the fact that he was supposed to call an early election in spring, and he didn't. So it's been on the table that an election is about to be called. Well, now we're seeing in the mainstream media his numbers are through the roof. Now, are they? We always can't trust with what we see. But I
Mm-hmm.
see him calling an election, whether those numbers were manufactured or not. And the really scary part is, and I was talking about this last night off air with my producer because he's in the US, is this scary part about Canada is there's no end to his reign. There's no limited number of times that we can have a prime minister. Justin Trudeau's father, what was he was in power, I believe, for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the scary part for us in Canada, and I can only speak from Canada because where we live, besides maybe what we've seen or talked to other people in other areas of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Very true. I find personally and collectively what's really difficult is we don't really know what's true. We don't know what's true with a capital T. We don't even know what's true with a small t, because over and over and over again, we've been lied to by our politicians, by the media, by the medical industry. Everywhere we turn for official information, we're getting lies, confusion, crisscross back and forth on opinions about masks, things like that. And then the actual truth, when we do get a hold of it, gets censored out, gets fact checked as being fake news. And so, really, how are we supposed to absolutely know what's going on? I don't think any of us really does, but what we are doing, people like yourself and myself, is we are really doing a lot of research ongoing every single day. And of course, by being tribunal members, we're rubbing shoulders with the top minds of the world. We're rubbing shoulders with lawyers and doctors and specialists and scientists and tech engineers. And so we're getting information so much ahead of the rest of the population before it gets all scrambled and confusing. But the real problem is there's a huge social repercussion from all of this, because those of us who know what's going on are very few, and it's so outrageous. Who would want to believe any of it? And to believe even a part of what we're saying opens the door to even more confusion, because one thing leads to another. So if this isn't real, is that real? Everything is like a house of cards coming down. And it's a very unsettling time, and it has huge, huge social ramifications that will go on for generations, even if the nonsense stopped tomorrow. How do you feel about that, Lorilei?
Oh, Karen, I could not agree with you more. And while you were speaking and I was listening to you, I mentioned this off air, and this is very concerning for me. We've mentioned Rebel News Media when we've been on other podcasts together.
Yes.
And the reason why is a lot of people may not be aware, but in Canada, our news is 100% funded by the government. So you can see where we are with our mainstream media. The other thing is in Canada, anybody, and obviously I haven't spoken to every single person in Canada, but pretty well everybody I have spoken to that is not quote unquote awake has
Mm-hmm.
no clue what is going on, just believes that if we just listened to the government, this would have been over long ago. If we just comply, it's very, I know we've talked about this on other shows too, but it's very, there's a real division, and people proudly and celebrated for getting the jab. I love that you call it that, because I agree with you from a medical perspective. This is not a vaccine. But what's very concerning to me, and I pulled it up while you were speaking, on Rebel News Media, it came up 30 seconds before we started this show. And I fast forwarded through the video because the headline says, in Montreal, Quebec, it says question mark vaccines mandatory for Montreal high schoolers. There's a document in here and it goes on, but it's highlighted, and it says to ensure a safe return to school in September, the goal must be met. Depending on the epidemiological situation, 75% of 12 to 17-year-olds must have received both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine before we can ease hygiene measures such as wearing masks and isolations in case of contact with an infected person. This is a really highlighted part. Therefore, the two-dose condition must be met to ensure activities such as extracurricular and sport activities can return to normal in schools. Most importantly, it is key to avoid a possible fourth wave in the fall. Now, what's concerning about this, and this bears more research, I'm just sharing what just came out,
Mm-hmm.
because just because one person said it doesn't mean it's the truth. And that's something we have to question everything, not being overly suspicious, but really checking our facts. But what concerns me about this, if this is true, the World Health Organization also came out very quietly, not this Monday, but last Monday,
Mm-hmm.
saying children under the age of 18, they are not recommending that they receive the jab.
Mm-hmm.
hmm So here we are with our children, our future. Is this
Yep.
true? If this
It's
is one
just,
province, go ahead.
sorry. It's just like you had mentioned on another show we were on recently, where you were saying, although it's not considered mandatory, they will remove all of our ability to go out and to participate in life unless we do. So it's extreme coercion. It means the kids can't go back to school unless they get it. They can't participate in extracurricular activities unless they get it. And I think this is going to lock us in more and more as time goes by. They did something very similar to this in Israel, where they create two kinds of citizens, the ones who have had the jab and the ones who haven't. And the ones who haven't, they just eliminate our options. But then there's another part of this, and that is the people who have the jab and are supposedly protected are now blaming those of us who are resistant to the propaganda as being disease spreaders, dirty people, unreliable, don't be friends with us. This social ostracism that's developing, and it's breaking families apart. How do you feel about that, Laura Lee?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I get quite a few people. There's two scenarios I've been seeing. One is when there's a couple that, whether they were common law or married, doesn't matter, but they are now no longer together. Even though they may share 50-50 custody of their children together,
Mm-hmm.
the primary spouse, it seems, their ex-spouse, that has the primary custody of the children mainly living with them, this is what I'm seeing, is they believe in the jab. They believe that the children need this. Then you see the other ex-spouse, who is very well aware of what is going on, does not want this to happen. And I'm specifically speaking about children about 12 to 15 years of age. And I've
Mm-hmm.
had so many people reach out and say, what can I do? How can I stop this? I've seen scenarios where it's been used as a weapon between the two spouses, threats. Um, the other thing that concerns me is, and going through a divorce myself, I don't think people understand why it's a little more difficult to sue in Canada. For example, if you need to go to court where I live in Ontario, and I just went through this, well, it's probably been about 8 years now, there were some things that we should have probably gone over to court about, because sometimes you need to do that. I'm not trying to air dirty laundry. But my lawyer told me that it was going to cost, just to walk in the door of the court, $100,000 to $150,000 to go to court. This is why parents are desperate. Nobody has that kind of money to take their spouse to court to try and get this stopped. And even through all that, what's going on here in Canada and the US is these kids can go get this jab at this age. And they're getting free ice cream. They don't have to tell their parents. They don't need their permission. And that's the scary part. That's the really scary, scary part. And I also want to add very quickly, I could not agree with you more how isolating this is. I'd love to share something very quickly with you. My partner, Dell, who also has a show on my network. I'll when we're finished. I know you said, I just realized to share where they can find me, but I'll be sure to add that by the end, Karen.
And it'll be
Anyways,
in the links below as well,
yes.
so we can
Sorry, I
post.
was so gung ho to go, and I'm going over my mind realizing you asked that. But what I want to share is the other thing I'm seeing. People who have been adamant they are not going to get this. Excuse me. I love that Vanessa added in the chart in the chat. Not a jab, it's a death dart. I feel that way myself, personal
Mm-hmm.
opinion. But he was out at his cottage, his family cottage, and there were people out there that were adamant a few weeks ago they were never getting this. There was no way, no how. Well, lo and behold, seeing more and more people went and got it. That's what happened. He was sitting around the bonfire. He was the only one that didn't have the jab, and getting a lot of pressure, a lot of flack. And I love him in the way that how he responds to people like this is he said, "What are you worried about? You guys all have this. You all have it. You're all protected. What are you worried about me for? Even if I have something, you're protected." And he said, "By the way, I don't have anything." And then they were really pressuring him about, why are you not doing this? And these are his words. I'm not saying they're medically sound, but it was pretty interesting what he says to them
Mm-hmm.
is healthy people don't put poison in their bodies. And it actually really silenced a lot of people. I was actually quite happy that that happened. But this is exactly what we're seeing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like it's a hive mind. I've been finding people that have it. Have you got it? Have you got it? Are you going to get it? You really
Mm-hmm.
need it. And it comes up like 10, 15 times in a conversation. It's crazy. Are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm seeing that. I just went to the farmer's market on the weekend and every booth, everybody was talking about it. Everybody. It's like they're obsessed about it and they can't think about anything else. Now, I want to just stop for a minute and just reiterate some simple facts to the listeners. Now, is it the FDA in the United States? Anyway, they came out and said that this is not an approved vaccination. This is not an approved treatment. In fact, they even recommended that all the rank and file members of that organization not get it. It has not been proven safe. But what happened is things were orchestrated so that the medical treatments that do work for this sickness were deemed as unacceptable or some other fiction. And then because there was no available treatment now, then under the Emergency Act, they were able to pass the jab. But it is never been deemed safe or effective. Meanwhile, in my post box, I just received the second notice from the Alberta government. I'm in Alberta in Canada. Lorilei is in Ontario. And it tells everybody that this is completely safe and completely effective. That is bold-faced lies that the people are believing and buying into. And it's not safe. Do you have anything to say about the lack of safety on this issue, Lorilei?
Oh, do I have things to say? First of all, you're absolutely right. We do differ province by province, not as dramatically as say in the United States, necessarily state to state. But what a lot of people are not aware of, and I've had this conversation because I'm meeting some fellow healthcare professionals that are in full support of this. And what I always say if we're able to have an open discussion is the fact that, first of all, when I went to university to get my degree in nursing, first 2 years were spent on many things, but including health promotion, health prevention, that, vaccines are good things, people need to go out and get these, it prevents future illnesses, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I believe that. Why wouldn't I? I mean, I got vaccines my whole life growing up and what have you. But then when my second son was born, he has severe autism. He's now 23, very much like a precocious 5 to 7 year old, and always, unless we have some kind of miracle, will be that way. But the reason I share that is my son's autism was not one of those children where I suspected vaccine involvement, but I was meeting more and more and more and more people having a perfectly developing 18-month-old little one, meeting all their milestones. They went for what's called their MMR, mumps, measles, and rubella. And within an hour, many children, 1 to 8 hours, it was like a light switch was turned off. There was no speech. There was things like stimming. There was things like, it went on and on. And I've seen more and more parents around the world, not just in the US, fighting tooth and nail for recompensation because of this. And it was constantly said over and over and over, vaccines do not cause autism. Then I'm going to go forward a little bit with this jab, if you will. If you start opening Pandora's box, that's what caused me to start opening it. Never mind my eldest here in Ontario, they get the Twinrix vaccine or hepatitis B in 7th grade. My son developed every symptom of hepatitis except the yellow skin or jaundice. That's when I really opened Pandora's box. I was shocked what I found out researching. But with this vaccine in my research, I hate to call it vaccine because it's not, is that this is not new. They have been trying to get this on the market since the last SARS infection 20 years ago, as well as researching many years before. But the problem is they've used every type of animal, and what's happened is the same result. But the most scary, I guess, research study, they used ferrets, which apparently have the same immune system, very similar to what we do as human beings. The animals always did great, wonderful autoimmune response, beautiful blood titers or titers, depending on how you say it. But what they could do with animals that they couldn't do with human beings, and I say until now, is that the animals were then exposed to what they were inoculated against, so the coronavirus. And when they did this, every single animal crossed the blood-brain barrier. There were serious autoimmune issues, much worse than what they were inoculated for. There was organ damage. It went on and on. Every animal died. That is why this has never gotten through. It's not just the FDA. It is not approved in health by Health Canada. Most places in the world, it is not approved. The only reason it got through is because we are in an emergency situation And once that clears, are they covered to give it anymore? I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's why they're holding on to all the myths that
Mhm.
there's not only this deadly virus going around, but now there's all these variants. And so they'll just keep things in an emergency state, ongoing, ongoing, ongoing. Now, I want to touch on another issue, Laura Lee. Vanessa just texted. She says, and the unjabbed are not letting family or friends to visit due to shedding transmissal. So, yes, absolutely. And I got to tell you about my personal situation. Now, I have not been able to go and see my grandbabies who live in the province of British Columbia because we have had restrictions on our travel. So, our
Mhm.
movement in and out of the province has been restricted, but even each province has been divided up into these medical zones, and we were not allowed to cross from one medical zone to the other. So the grandbabies are going to they're twins. They're going to be
Ah,
2 years old in July,
oh,
and they lifted the restrictions enough that I can go and see them next month. Now I don't know if my daughter and her partner have had the jab. And the reason is because every time I try to talk to my daughter about it, now she's an intelligent, savvy woman. She's got a really good position in the administration of a major Canadian university.
mhm.
All her friends are very intelligent, very with it, very knowledgeable, but all of them are convinced by what the government narrative is,
Mhm.
and they've all bought that. So anytime I try to say anything, my daughter just thinks I'm right out of my mind, and I don't blame her for that. So there's two issues here. The one issue is a health issue. Do I take the chance and go and be there anyway? Personally, my desire to see my grandbabies is so great that even if I did get a side effect, I would not regret going to see them. I just can't stay away from them because I love them too much. And of course, my daughter and her husband.
Mhm.
But so there's the whole idea of the shedding, which isn't really shedding. I know you can cast more on this, Laura Lee. But the other thing is it's dividing families. So in order for me to maintain my position with my daughter, which is that I love her unconditionally. I love her no matter what she does. So there's that. And how do I get information to her, which she's resistant to, and maintain my relationship with her? So
Mhm.
I'm not the only one in the world having this problem. I'm sure every culture and every country, every state, every province is having some version of this. What are your thoughts on this, Laura Lee?
You are absolutely right. And again, I'm very grateful that a lot of people reach out to myself. And I think they do because they know I talk to a lot of different people from around the world, and people will send me things. I'm
Mhm.
seeing this constantly. One person in particular from my city, my heart went out to her because her children are in that age group of 12 to 16. Her partner was completely hell bent on having this jab. Didn't matter
Mhm.
what she showed him, what she said, and he ended up going and getting it. But the problem was her children were now saying, "You're an anti-vaxxer. You don't know what you're talking about. I want to go
Mm.
with friends." And I said, this is really, I just tried to be there to support her because what could I say?
Mhm.
The thing is I said, you need to understand that you and your husband are the two main authority figures, obviously, in your home. So one of the authority figures is saying, this is fine, I'm getting it, putting it all back on her that he was doing this because of his great love for her and his children. I
Mm.
really, no, this was your decision to do this. You know how I feel about this, so please don't say you're doing this because of me. But the
Mhm.
thing is, now she's contending with the children, and I said, you can't really blame your kids, never mind what they're seeing and hearing at school. But of two parents, one has gone and got it already and is hearing all these discussions. So you can see where this is coming from with no blame or finger pointing. But exactly, same thing. My ex-husband, went and got the jab. His mother's a nurse, his sister's a nurse. I am a nurse. He's not unintelligent. I did
Mhm.
try to send a bit of information to him, and you could tell he thought I had gone off the wall. I'd lost my mind. I mean,
Mhm.
even my son with autism understands. I had to explain it in terms of Call of Duty that he's been playing and white hats and black hats. And he's very funny because he'll say, Mom, what's going on with the revolution? Because he understood what that meant. And
Yeah.
so, but he gets it. But the thing is, my ex has very little to do with my son. And that's not pointing fingers or anything like that. The reason why I share it is my kids are okay with that. That's fine. But he calls and wants to see our son once a week. What am I going to say? No. So when he's out with him, we will be going out to our cottage. Now, every single person, including my mother-in-law, are all have received the jab. So we are going to be around it. We're having Dell, or my partner's brother and sister-in-law, coming up. They've received it. So
Mhm.
everybody around us that we're going to be around has received it. So what do you do? Do you say, I cut off all relationships with every single person I love or have a friendship or relationship with? The other
Mhm.
thing I will share is I am not thinking about this when I've gone out to do the shopping. I'm not focusing on that. But I can tell you right now, as soon as I am near somebody that has received the shot, and I haven't asked them, I know that they've had it because I get the most splitting, pounding headache. Like my head is going to explode. And I don't get headaches. By the time
Mhm.
I remove myself and get home, it usually takes a good 2 to 3 hours being away from that environment before it will start to go.
Mhm.
It's not psychosomatic. It's not like I'm thinking, oh my God, if they've axed or they've axed or they, I'm not thinking about it. It's when
Mhm.
the headache comes on, it's like, yep, must have been around somebody that got the jab. So what is that going to do? So for those of us that are unjabbed, we should never have to force, nor should the people that had this jab, whether we're going to be able to continue a relationship or be around those that we love.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And, from my daughter's perspective, her and her husband are concerned about me being unjabbed.
Mhm.
They're concerned about me bringing the disease with
Mhm.
me to see them. Well, first of all, I would never go if I even thought I was coming
Yeah,
down with anything, even
exactly.
hay fever. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't do that to them. But these are real points that are causing a lot of added stress to families. And families are already stressed. It's really difficult to love your children unconditionally. I know that you do, and I do, but there are many who do the tough love approach, and they go, well, if you're going to cross my boundaries, I don't want anything to do with you. I can't do that. I
I
love my babies. I brought them into this world they were conceived in love, they were born into love, and they've been loved all their lives because I
absolutely.
wanted I wanted to give them something I never had that my parents couldn't give me. And so it's made such a difference. They've become such wonderful, amazing human beings, sensitive, spiritual, intellectual, just free thinkers. They're just amazing people. And I want to continue to love them unconditionally. If your own mother can't love you unconditionally, there's a problem here.
Agreed. Agreed. And Karen, you said that so beautifully. I was always told when I was 16 that I'd never be able to have children. And I say all the time, I've even run an infertility support group in our city, that, you know what, I didn't win the lottery just once and went through hell and back to conceive my eldest.
Mm-hmm.
I won it twice. And when you and I'm not getting preachy here, but when you've been told that you can't have a child, something as
Mm-hmm.
natural as every human being on the planet can go through,
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely beyond your control, believe me, we all love our children. But when you see that little human being that you finally brought into the world, that is all you've ever wanted, and
Mm-hmm.
thank the powers that be every single day. I celebrate who they are, and I have very unique children. My oldest is part of the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
He's a drag queen part time. I mean, I'm at every show. I mean, I celebrate both of them and for who they are. But
Yes.
where I'm going with this is part of the concern with this jab is, what does it do to our fertility? Especially now that and I'm saying children, I would have been horrified at 12 or 13, somebody calling me a child because I thought I was fully grown and looked like I was 25 at that age. But we're not full grown. So what does this do for future generations? And I can guarantee you I was not worried or thinking about having a child at 12 or 13. And more likely, I would have gone out and got that jab, knowing that I didn't have to tell my parents and I didn't need their permission. And got free ice cream, got to go out and be with my friends. So I can see where kids are developmentally and why they would do this. But kids at that age think they are invincible. It's part of growth and development. They don't have the forethought to think, maybe 10 years from now, I may want to have a child, or what could this do to my heart? It's not, that's just a few people. That's all they say in the news with this heart, quote, inflammation that they're seeing. It's a heck of a lot more than heart inflammation, and very, very serious.
I want to just add at this point, yes, absolutely, I agree with you, Lorilei. I think you're a wonderful parent, and your kids are very glad to have you as a mother.
The same as you, Karen. I do about you.
Well, it's anyway, I don't know, but I definitely can see that in you. But I want folks to be really clear that right now in Canada, they are pushing children 12 years old and older to get the jab, and they don't need their parents' permission. They don't need to have a form signed. And like you mentioned on another show, Lorilei, children can't get tattoos even at 16. Children can't even get their ears pierced without their parents' permission.
How about a
Yet
field
now
trip?
they're being...
trip at school, Karen. They need their parents' permission.
Pardon?
A field trip at school normally results in a consent form being sent home for the parents
Yes.
to sign. Go figure, field trip. And now we're taking children's lives into our hands.
Yes, and I just got a notice in the mail that said that children who aren't 12 yet, but if they turn 12 anytime during this year, they can go and have it done. So they're actually encouraging 11-year-olds to go and do this. And also for the folks that don't know this, they're offering free ice cream, in some places free McDonald's, free this, free that. And the kids just think it's a great thing. They can't wait to get out there and get it done. In fact, it's in the United States. They've just licensed the McDonald's to give the jab. So you can go, instead of, do you want fries with that? Now it's, do you want the jab with that? What the hell is going on here?
Where have we seen this ever in the history of mankind, where we are having $1 million lotteries? I didn't know this was going on in Alberta till we did.
Yeah, in Alberta, your name goes in and you could win $1 million with
And
all
the
kinds of other
States,
prizes.
in the States, you can win a full scholarship. All this stuff. Never mind, there's a very disturbing video that's been out for just less than a month. It came out from the UK with a leaked document behind the scenes. I can't verify it, but
Yeah.
we know what happened with our Liberal document that was called fake back in October. There was a leaked document from our government telling us what was going on with the timeline, and certain authorities, even Rebel News, I'm going to say this right now, an independent news source, the guy that runs it and owns it was calling it BS. There's no way, this isn't real.
Yes.
It's real. Now, this one is very concerning because it is talking about by July 15th, everything's shutting down. Why they're doing this to contribute to the plan. People will be wearing bracelets who have received the jab. It's very detailed about what's going on. And the scary part is, I watched that movie Songbird. I had heard about it. And when it first came out, was this like predictive programming, or was this a warning? Folks, I urge you to watch this, because some of the things that are happening, including some of the bills that are being tabled and the laws being broken by our government, that affect if they go through, we will basically be another version of the CCP when it comes to what we won't be able to say what we're saying right now. Government will control what we see, what we say, and how we say it, and what
Yep.
we watch. But with this new hate speech, that is like the movie Minority Report. So as I understand it, it was originally, this was part of the Bill C-10, which most Canadians don't even know about.
Yep.
But Bill C-36 on hate speech, because it got taken out, so he tabled it on another bill, is say you've got someone that, and we've got people like this, I'm sorry, but we do, somebody that maybe doesn't like somebody else. And so
Yeah.
they contact the authorities and say, I'm very concerned that so and so is going to be posting hate speech about me.
Mm-hmm.
This is tabled, and I kid you not, you can find this yourself doing the research. There is the potential, if this goes through, for that person who hasn't even done anything yet to get a $50,000 fine and up to 10 years in jail. And this is going on, and Canadians have no idea about it. None.
Yep.
Hmm.
And Bill C-10, which is the one that would give the Trudeau government complete control over the CRTC, which is the Canadian Communications and Broadcasting Regulatory Body, that they can control everything we see, everything we say, everything we hear. It's like they're going to charge us with sense crimes. We're not allowed to speak. We're not allowed to hear. Like, it's unbelievable. And they passed it in the middle of the night. And
Hmm.
then the Bill C-36 that you're also talking about, it sounds to me that they're grooming it so that if anybody speaks against the government
Hmm.
narrative, that we could also go to jail. Yes, it clearly says, folks, that even if you haven't done it, if they think you're going to do hate
Hmm.
speech or misrepresent the government in any way, you can get heavily fined, jail time before you've even done anything. And what's interesting about this is they also brought out legislation that was highly controversial about 2 years ago that allows the RCMP, which is the Federal Police Department, the government's police department in Canada, to be able to scan people and rate our micro expressions, our heartbeat, whether we're sweating or whether we look nervous, and they're able to then decide whether or not we're going to commit a crime or not. And this has already been instituted in Canada, and it goes along with the mass surveillance program. So, I mean, this is just so unbelievable. You can't believe, where's it going to go next?
I have to agree with you. And again, I even asked my son, my eldest son, he gets very quiet when I talk about this, but I do have a letter that I've been desperately trying to find in my move. I will find it, or I will go back through records or whatever I have to do. But my pediatrician, after my son's reaction to the twin Rex, wrote a letter exempting both my boys and myself from any future vaccinations. Said he did not recommend it. And again, he needs that because he's working in the public now. He's moved back here into our city, and they're concerned about this. But I didn't mince words with my son, and I never have. I
Mm-hmm.
basically told him, I don't want you to die. And I've been very honest about what I'm seeing, what
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing. He gets very quiet, and so does his partner. So I
Mm-hmm.
know it's not a comfortable subject for him. He jokes that if he ever has kids, because he's always said he'd get his mom to watch his kids, and of course I would, but that he says, I'm going to have a baby conspiracy theorist. He jokes about it. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I usually try to be very careful about what I do put out there. Even the
Mm-hmm.
fact that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this document that seems to have come out of Montreal, I made it very clear that I haven't had the time to research it. I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
it because it's going along with the discussion. And Karen, I don't know. Like I said, we get back to this Hydra where you think you've heard it all. And so
Mm-hmm.
that head's cut off, and then 3 to 6 more heads sprout from where it's been cut off. And the thing is, he's breaking the laws. Trudeau to do this. Like you said, Bill C-10, we thought it was tabled. It was gone. It was off the table. He snuck it in during the middle of the night. He broke a few laws, according to Michelle Rempel from our opposing opposition. She's been very clear and very open about what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, and you said it much more eloquently than I did on a previous podcast, that Trudeau is also taking our Speaker of the House to the Supreme Court. It's never been done in the history of our parliament or politics in
Yeah.
Canada. I'll leave it up to you because you said it much more eloquently than I did. If you could maybe share with them, Karen, if you're okay.
Well, okay, there's basically three branches of government. There's, you know, the politicians branch, then there's the members of parliament, and then there's the judiciary or the court system. And so there are three different branches that are supposed to balance each other out. And so what happened is the Speaker of the House represents the people, the politicians who represent the people. And what they decided is they wanted to see some documents. They wanted to see, trying to remember which documents, but they
It was
wanted.
the level 4 lab on the phone.
Yes, the level 4 lab that's in Canada. Apparently, these labs are all over the world, and they wanted to know basically how the story goes is that one of the employees at that lab took Ebola from the lab, I guess put it in a briefcase, and then went and flew to China and delivered it to the Wuhan lab. And so our government and our people want to know, we want to know more about this. We want to know why this happened. We want to know how it happened, and we want to make damn sure this never happens again. So what Trudeau's government did is they just ignored it. They just completely ignored it. So again, it was done a second time. He was filed with all the documents, everything, and he just ignored it again. So
From the
now they
speaker.
took it to the court system, to the Supreme Court of Canada, to order Trudeau to release that information, and instead he's flipped it so that he's charging the Speaker of the House with some kind of crime so that they can never tell him what to do anymore. How unbelievable is that?
Yeah,
I can't
and
believe our time is
he's
flying.
basically getting an order to silence the Speaker of the House. It's
Yes.
never been done before ever. So Trudeau is breaking laws to bring stuff through. Because I was having a conversation with a host on our network, and we email back and forth, and she's had to stay silent about many things. She's got a pretty big platform out in the public eye, and just
Yeah.
so she doesn't upset anybody, she doesn't want to get into it. But she's very well versed on what's going on. And when I
Yeah.
sent to her, she said, "Oh, no, 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 that bill's been tabled. It's not going to happen." I'm thinking, why is she not seeing this? Oh, crap, I forgot to send the screenshot. So I send her the screenshot with it. She goes, "What?" So
Yeah.
she went back and looked too, did she said, I cannot believe this. I do not
Yeah.
believe it. Hmm.
And there is indicators that this is going to happen everywhere. So
Hmm.
they've started by doing it, this kind of shenanigans in England and in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. So these are the test zones where they're pushing this all through, and then it'll branch off to the rest of the world. So if you're living in a country where you think you're safe, or you think that your rights are being protected, think again. You could lose it just as fast as the Canadians are losing it now. Lorilei, I can't believe it. Our time is almost running
I
out.
know. I love
I don't
doing
want to
this.
give you the bum's rush, but I want to give you a little space here to maybe we could talk a little bit about anything positive that we
Yes.
can do in all of this.
Yes, there is. And again, thank you so much for having me, Karen. I just dearly love you and really enjoy our conversations because it works out so well between the two of us. And what I do want to leave with the people. No, well, the reason we share this with you is not to scare you. The truth I feel is very empowering, as is knowledge.
Mhm.
What I tell people, and I practice what I preach, is we are very powerful as individuals. The power of our minds, our thoughts, and our words are incredible. It's all energy.
Mhm.
One person can make a difference. So, as a collective, if we really focused on what we wanted to see versus what we don't want to see, that
Mhm.
we really could make a difference. And I don't say that with airy fairy woo woo type of information. We
Mhm.
really could do this. The other part is, I encourage you, if you don't have to believe a word of what Karen and I have said, but if anything has resonated with you listening to this, I strongly encourage you to do your own research. Follow the breadcrumbs. The only thing I suggest is to use an alternative browser other than Google, because Google is part of Silicon Valley, like DuckDuckGo. There's many other browsers. You will be amazed at what you find. Make sure that you take care of yourself. Proper
Mhm.
nutrition, rest, vitamins, meditation does wonders. And the other thing I want to put out there that I truly believe, that light always triumphs over dark. The truth is always revealed. We need to pull together with those that we love, hold strong, prepare for the worst, like I think you said on the last podcast, Karen, and I loved it. Prepare for the worst and expect the best. And keep empowering yourself with knowledge and speaking to like minded people. And again, pull together, put our differences aside and pull together where there's more of us. And I'm not saying talking about violence or anything, I'm saying if we pull together, there is strength in numbers.
Absolutely. There's 7 billion of us.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. How huge is that? So, thank you so much, Lorilei, for all your wisdom, your support, for being on the show. I love you so much. I want people to go check out your show. I'm going to have the links in the description below. Um, I also want to remind folks that there is such a thing as epigenetics, which means that we actually have control over our genetics. So these jabs are going in and changing our genetics. And if worse comes to worse, we can change them back. And so
Mhm.
that's really important. Do some research on epigenetics. And then the other thing I want to remind people is God is not dead.
Nope.
We all have a belief system. Doesn't matter if you're a Hindu or a Jew or you're a Methodist or a Catholic or if you're pagan, it doesn't matter. You believe in something. And what unites all of those philosophies is the do no harm mandate and the unconditional love. And if you tap into your spiritual resources, there's never been a better time to get reconnected if you're not connected already. And if you are connected, pray for yourself, pray for our world, pray for humanity. It sure as the heck can't hurt. Now, Lorilei, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being on the show. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be going and visiting my grandbabies, and I
Mm.
won't be able to do the show next week. Is there any chance you could come in and co-host for me again?
Yes, and we've talked about it, and I offered to do it. I'm happy to do it. So, yes, we will make this announcement right now. I will fill in for Karen while she's gone. I'm deeply honored and extremely grateful to be doing so. So, I look forward to it so that there's no blank spots. We'll continue on with Convergence and wish Karen I'm going to be talking to her before, but wish her a wonderful, wonderful trip. And I'm so happy that she's finally able to see her grandbabies and her family.
Oh, thank you so much, Lorilei. I appreciate you so much. So
Likewise.
just in closing, a reminder, the Quantum Health Transformation Program is free. It's an online lifestyle course. There's never been a better time to get started on it. And it's available from my website and my social media platforms. So if you haven't done so already, please do check it out along with my other free and inspiring information. I'm just going to scoot down and thank Gaz and Vanessa for hosting me and moderating for me on People for People Radio. And much love and light to you, the viewers. Thank you for sharing this time with me. You can find me every Tuesday at noon Pacific or 3 o'clock Eastern Time here on People for People Radio. That's www.peopleforpeople.com. peopleforpeople.ning.com. So we go live every Tuesday. Please join us, and thank you again so much for being a part of this show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.